to stump up £670 a month actually fills me with dread now. I'm getting scared.
It's seven or eight grand, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is like, for the first time in my life, I really feel scared.
Oh,
and, what with all the other costs that are going up,
yes.
And my income sort of dropping quite dramatically
right.
Once I fully retire,
yes.
It's a real concern now.
What do you feel about or what is your response to the suggestion that, because it sounds a bit lazy to say politicians must do more, it's a little bit something must be done, but if this isn't the sort of scenario that they intervene in, I don't know what the point of them is. I mean, how do you respond to Martin Lewis's insistence that the government should be sitting in a room until they've come up with some way of addressing your fears?
Well, I think the question of the taxing on their excess profits, both from the suppliers and from the intermediary, I think is a given. Maybe even some tax recessions, whether they reduce the VAT on fuel or something. But to do what they've done in France, France protected their people by saying it's limited to, 4%?
Yeah, but they own EDF, don't they?
Yeah, but we're paying for that.
Yeah, but that's the problem with privatisation.
For all the French people.
That's the problem with privatisation versus nationalisation, or at least state-owned institutions. I don't know that there's much we can do about that in the immediate, short to short term. That's the way it goes. £9.5 billion quid, Shell, has chalked up in profits this year. £9.5 billion.
Yeah, I'm sitting in the middle, not rich, not poor, but scared.
Yes, well, I'm sorry to hear that you're scared, and I don't like these conversations, Bernard, as I'm sure you understand, because I don't like not being able to say anything that can reassure you or give you cause not to be scared. But because this is not an opinion that you've described, this is counting. It's numbers, it's sums that have made you frightened. It's looking at what's coming in and looking at what's likely to be going out and spotting an anomaly. And I don't know what the point of politicians is if it's not to intervene at precisely moments like this. Thank you, Bernard, and good luck. There's a brief moment of politicking, if you like. It's nuts, right? You got this leadership, this ludicrous, God almighty, it feels like it's already been going on for years and it's nowhere near over. There's 11 more hustings. I don't know whether one of my colleagues was trolling me this morning, and that's not true. I couldn't bring myself to check in case it was. Please, just stop now. We all know who's going to win. Why do we have to carry on with this nonsense? But you've got this ludicrous leadership contest continuing with about 11 people eligible to vote in it. And then you've got the Prime Minister. It feels like an inadequate title for Boris Johnson, doesn't it? What is the point of them all? When people like a lifetime working, professional, moderately successful, professional's got nothing to do in it, but by his own definition, sort of comfortable, now frightened of what energy bills are going to do to his economic situation. What are we doing? Watching some ludicrous game of table tennis between two supremely unfit politicians while the country is just slip-sliding away? No, I don't get it. I haven't got it for a long time. But at least we've got each other. Stuart's in Honiton. Stuart, what would you like to say?
Good morning, James, and thanks for the fantastic and vital work you do. And the end of my point will link lovely to what you just said. But essentially, this is the worst example of the most obscene corporate greed that's destroying the planet coming to fruition. With your permission, I'd like to mention a documentary on the mainstream streaming platform, if I may.
Yeah, quickly though.
Big Oil versus the World.
Yes, yeah. No, it is astonishing, isn't it?
It blows your mind as to how for the last 40 years the most powerful companies in the world have put all their profits into undermining arguments against global warming. The really scary part, and as soon as Liz Truss came into the leadership race, I could not understand for the life of me why she was being put forward as the candidate. And suddenly, the light bulb moment last night, watching the hustings, she worked 4 years for Shell. And even last night, she's defending fracking, which when you watch that documentary is proven to be an unsafe source. Companies are still, ExxonMobil, the world's largest oil company, plowing money into carbon capture.
And there's a naivety, isn't there, to to the average member of the public, and I include myself in that category. I don't know whether you include yourself, but I mean, it's only through doing this job that I've become aware of these vile lobbying outfits that call themselves think tanks, and the way they've inveigled their way into every conversation about these things without telling us who funds them. But you know, you turn the BBC on and there's someone sitting there from some dodgy think tank, some Herbert, giving it large about how we don't need this and we don't need that, and they are literally just shilling for the big oil companies that you described, and deliberately and knowingly creating the situations in which we find ourselves today. That's what I mean by naivety, thinking that, oh, it can't be that blatant, it can't be that cynical, it can't be that gross, and the documentary you refer to sort of blows the lid off that naivety, doesn't it?
100%, and I think the solution is Norway approving it, that we can have all our energy from renewable sources that won't poison the planet. And how do we do a better job? We talk about it, we watch these documentaries and educate ourselves through valuable, reliable news sources, because if we don't, we are getting to a tipping point.
And you can't have a viable, reliable news source if it's got representatives of these think tanks on it, giving the impression that there's two sides to the story. You know, we're back to the old model I used to use of Nigello Lorsini being invited onto Newsnight to argue with Galileo Galilei about heliocentrism. I mean, it is bonkers, and it is where we are. Are you sure about Norway? I'm not ashamed of my ignorance on some issues, so I'm happy to admit it. Norway's really leading the way on this, did you say?
My understanding is
they've got shed loads of gas, though, haven't they, in Norway?
Well, they did. When they had the opportunity like we did to renewable years ago, they did, and now my understanding is they have 99% of their energy come from renewables. If it was just corporate greed for profit, then, you know, you could think, well, okay, they're making money.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying that's making...
No, but it's the planet. It's the price we pay. Yes. It's the price they pay as well. That's where the naivety comes from, because you think, well, hang on a minute. If it's that simple, why are these people doing stuff that's going to screw up their own planet? And then I think it was Kemi Badenoch who said at some point during those debates, she said something along the, well, we're not going to be here, are we?
Yeah. We're going to have our bills quadrupled when we don't need to, whilst destroying the planet. And we as a people need to stand up and say, no, we're not going to accept this. There are solutions there, but we need to talk about it more. So thank you for talking about it, because it's so relevant.
And you wonder why so much of the media is desperate for you to be talking about kneeling footballers and statues rather than stuff like this. It's fairly straightforward, isn't it, given the likelihood of someone who owns a newspaper also having a rather large presence in the shareholdings of these energy companies. It's coming up to 11:15. A quick digression, because Stuart mentioned Norway. I finally watched Aha the movie yesterday. Oh my days, my heart is broken. I am one of the many enlightened people who consider Aha to be one of the finest bands of the last 50 years, but I had no idea how fractious relations were between the band members. I've never watched a musical documentary that packed such an emotional punch as that. If you know the boys, if you know Mags, Morton and Paul, I really think that they should all do Full Disclosure together, and it'll be like a therapy session, and I'll be able to fix the entire band. I only mention that because it paints pictures of Norway that I hadn't seen before, and describes Norway as having been sort of Norway's isolation and sense of backwardsness being intrinsic to the rise of Aha and their need to get out of Norway and into London. I wonder how many people feel seen now in that little aside about Aha. Out of my 1.4 million listeners, I'm guessing probably about 50. But I like to cater to every taste during the 3 hours that we spend together every morning.
LBC.
I'm David Lammy here on LBC. Boris Johnson isn't the only one desperately clinging to power. It's the entire Conservative government clinging to power. Corruption is a ball of snow which gets bigger when left unchecked until it consumes all of us. Change will only happen if we boot them all out and give Britain the fresh starts it needs. Join me, David Lammy, tomorrow from 4. Listen on your radio and on Global Player. LBC.
Get ready to see Klopp's men back in action. LFC TV on Sky is the only place to watch every single one of Liverpool FC's pre-season matches, live and exclusive. You go behind the scenes as we travel with the team and see all the new signings. All that for just £7 extra a month, and you can cancel anytime. LFC TV on Sky. All of the pre-season. Go to channel 425 and press the red button. LFC TV on Sky for £7 extra a month. Requires Sky TV. Cancellation requires 31 days notice.
How much fun can you have on your journey for free?
Right, you're driving. What colour line are we on again?
The blue one. Please mind the doors. Beep, 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 beep.
Great family days out start on the DLR, Elizabeth Line, London Overground and the Tube. And kids under 11 travel free. Do more of what you love. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters. Up to 4 kids travel free at any time when accompanied by a fare-paying adult.
At Vodafone, get half-price airtime for the rest of the year with the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra 5G. Now just £43 per month for the first 6 months, plus £49 up front, and all with unlimited 5G data. But hurry, offer ends 9th of August. Go online or install. Vodafone.
Then £56 per month, subject to CPI plus 3.9% annual increase, device and airtime plans. Credit check eligibility, coverage and terms. See Vodafone.co.uk. Credit by Vodafone.
Say hello to Zoom One. Zoom One brings together Zoom meetings, chat, whiteboard, phone and more. All in one place to streamline your team's communications. So you can simplify the way you work, whether you're in the office, at home, or a mix of both. Get more of the Zoom you know and love, with meetings, chat, whiteboard and phone bundled together into Zoom One. Find out more at zoom.com/one. Zoom One features vary by plan.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with James O'Brien.
It is 10:48 and you're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. We kind of know where it's happening or why it's happening. We kind of know that there is a natural injustice to the size of profits being posted by companies like Shell and Centrica, while personal energy bills are reaching unprecedented and for millions of families, I think, unmanageable heights. And today we're just talking together in the hope of bringing some light into the conversation. Not light as in levity, but light as in illumination. And I do think the more I think about it and the more we talk about it, the more baffled I am by the political landscape in Britain at the moment. I think, because obviously I do this for a living. And I do honestly think, I have to be so careful because it sounds like I'm criticising other people in the profession or even colleagues, and I'm really not. But I think the scale of how bad things are, the scale of Boris Johnson's awfulness, and the fact that his likely successor is complicit. She's continuity Johnson, Liz Truss. She's never really criticised him or acknowledged how awful he is. I just think until this spell is broken, then nothing gets done or nothing gets fixed. Rishi Sunak talking to Nick Ferrari last night about bringing back grammar schools. It's as if they're getting their ideas from 1975. It is just bizarre. Now, it may be because the Conservative membership, i.e. the only people in the country who have a say in who the next Prime Minister is, are still living in 1975, and an awful lot of them are. But for the rest of us, the idea that they're talking about grammar schools, I mean, to be honest with you, if I was allowed anywhere near these politicians, I would only be talking to them about energy costs and climate change now. I can't do it every day on the radio because you would turn off. Every single day, you turned on LBC, you turned on the biggest show on the station, and we were talking about climate change every day. I wouldn't be the biggest show on the station by the end of next week. Just can't do it. Human beings are fickle. I am fickle. I enjoy talking about weird stuff. What did we do yesterday? We do something funny yesterday? I certainly intended to do something funny yesterday. Oh no, we ran out of time. But anyway, I was going to talk about scruffiness, wasn't I? I was going to talk about scruffy coppers. I was really looking forward to talking about scruffy coppers. It's a bit like being in the pub or in a social situation. Imagine if I turned up at your house for dinner every night and started talking about climate change. I bet you'd be building a O'Brien-sized cat flap before you could say, oh, for goodness sake, wind your neck in, will you? You're so much fun when you talk about scruffy coppers. So there are huge problems here. Huge problems for all of us. But you can't talk about it every day. 0345 606 0973 is the number you need if you want to talk about it today. Gary's in Newport. Gary, what made you pick up the phone?
Morning, James. And, well, first of all, I completely share your bewilderment with
the current political landscape is farcical.
A bit. Sorry, I interrupted myself. Because I was about to say, I look at the media coverage, and it is carrying on as normal, isn't it? This is what I mean about, I don't want to sound like I'm criticising anybody, but when you sort of see people thinking perhaps or saying, oh, Liz Truss is actually looking quite good now in this leadership campaign, you're just sort of thinking, yeah, well, no, I can see why you're saying that, but you're talking as if this is normal, as if these are normal times, and they can't be normal times. Leaving aside Brexit and the self-imposed economic sanctions and the problems with getting workers and all the rest of it, just focusing entirely on energy, you've got the party of government having some sort of bizarre circular firing squad, a prime minister who is just going on away days and crossing things off his bucket list. Oh, I'd like to fly a plane. Oh, I think I'll do a bungee jump tomorrow. I'm going to eat my dinner on a roller coaster next week while someone films it. And then you've got these juxtapositions, these profits being posted while our bills are rocketing. It's absolutely bonkers. Anyway, why did you ring in? Sorry, Gary.
I've listened quite a bit, so I'm used to it now.
Good man.
So our position, it's not from my personal position that I'm phoning up about. I help run a local football club in the South Wales Valleys. We're approaching 100 years old in 4 years' time. We've got 20 plus teams from junior girls right the way through to veterans, about 450, 500 playing members, and we've got a not-for-profit clubhouse.
Yes.
So our electricity bill a year ago was £300 a month. We've been contacted in the last 2 days. It's going to be 900. Now, as you can imagine, we're not a hugely profitable business. We break even. We do okay, but that kind of bill actually threatens the existence of the clubhouse.
Oh boy.
Now, we will get through it. The reason we'll get through it is because it's too bloody important. Excuse me, I shouldn't have said that.
No, that's fine.
It's too important that we do get through it, because if we don't get through it, these kids, whilst they'll still play football, they don't have that base, they don't have that...
Oh, it's a beating heart of a community, something like that. I really, that's something I do understand. I do get that, and it's an interesting perspective to take, because you're not speaking about personal situations. You're reminding us of the ripple effect, the ramifications of these increases right across the board. It's not just about eating and heating and that kind of thing. It's about keeping amenities alive, keeping amenities afloat.
It is, and the crazy thing is, if the worst did happen, which, like I said, as long as I draw breath, we will not let that happen.
Have a whip round, can't you? But you can't have a whip round for everybody on the street.
No, but we'll do it, because we'll think differently. Even this morning I've been to see our local MP to see if we could become a warm bank in the winter and get some, work with the Trussell Trust.
Just pause right there, because a lot of people listening to this won't know what a warm bank is. I read about them yesterday and I couldn't quite believe my eyes. Tell everyone what a warm bank is, Gary.
It's in effect the legacy of a Conservative government, James. It is where people will go this winter to stay warm because they cannot afford to heat their houses. We have food banks. We are now going to have warm banks in what we are told is one of the best functioning economies in the world. If that is not gaslighting on an epic scale, I ask you what is. I ask you what is.
I don't know if you read Boris Johnson's account of what a brilliant job he's done as Prime Minister, but I like the idea of warm banks being his legacy. Warm banks in the United Kingdom.
Isn't it wild?
A building where the community has raised money to turn up the heating so that people who are cold at home can just come and sit there for a couple of hours and not be cold. I don't know how widespread, but I don't know if we'd done this 20 years ago and we'd been talking about food banks, maybe we'd have had a similarly visceral response. Gary, maybe we'd have been similarly disgusted about the prospects of food banks being in every town, and now we've got more of them and we've got branches of McDonald's.
It's more this being this hyper-normalisation, isn't it? It's this normalisation of well, I don't even know anymore.
Right, you do. You nailed it when you first came on. It's this idea of we must maximise profits, and everything else, everyone else can go whistle. I'll need to look up on that. Good luck, Gary, with that. And as you say, as long as you control breath, these communities. My late godfather, my uncle Martin, was the mainstay of Romilly Cricket Club, just outside Stockport. And until I went to his funeral, I hadn't realised what an astonishing contribution he'd made to hundreds of lives, and B, the role that these sports clubs play. The number of lads that came up to me at the wake just to say, your godfather you changed my life, you made such an impact on me. And that's what these clubs do. It's not just about playing sport, it's about having somewhere to go, someone to talk to, mentors, father figures even, and I wasn't expecting that to pop up in a conversation about energy prices, but that's why we do what we do every day, isn't it? 10:57 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. And Mark's in Budapest. Mark, we don't have long. What did you want to say?
I'm ready to surprise you a little bit on this call, I think. Ignore Orban and ignore all the other stuff. What we have here is none of our energy companies are publicly owned. Everything was privatised 30 years ago after communism because nobody had any money, basically, and they had to renew all they called all this infrastructure and everything.
Yes.
Since November last year, we've had price controls, which is as left-wing as you get.
Yes, it is.
And on fuel,
he's just had one major advisor resign because he's turned into a Nazi, but on price controls, he's left-wing.
Let's talk about economics for a second. On price controls, we've been paying £1.5p for fuel since last November, and it's remained static. He's also got price controls on gas and price controls on...
Where does the money... So who is being... I don't want to say punished.
The equivalent of Shell and BP, because Shell and BP are two things. They're selling the fuel, they're refining the fuel, but also they're exploring the fuel. They make profits everywhere.
So they simply say, so the Hungarian government, and you can't leave Orban to one side. I mean, you are describing a man whose own allies now see as a Nazi. But the government essentially says to these companies, if you want to carry on doing business here, you cannot sell it for above this price.
Absolutely.
What happens if they walk away? Because I mean,
they won't walk away because it's a publicly traded company,
and they're still making some money.
They're not
being forced to run at a loss. Yeah, I would like to know a little bit more about that. I mean, as a counterpoint, if you like, to this story about warm banks. Thank you, Mark. Which inevitably Martin Lewis has actually already spotted. I can't believe I'm writing this, but I wonder if this winter we'll need warm banks, the equivalent of food banks, where people who can't afford heating are invited to spend their days at no cost with heating. UK councils are in talks to set up warm banks. This is from Thursday the 14th of July, so just a couple of weeks ago. According to the National Energy Action, the NEA, 11,400 winter deaths are already caused by cold weather, and councils are now in talks. So I don't know, maybe it'll never happen. I don't want to sound like I'm scaremongering, but the fact that the phrase even exists in modern Britain.